This video will help you to ask better questions in your therapy work, specifically in instances where it feels like the client isn't giving you much to work with from their answers. It will do this by showing you one of the most important steps forward in being fluent in the solution-focused approach. Taking this one step alone is not the entirety of the approach, but it will make a substantial difference in your progress. In simplest terms possible, the thing that will instantly improve your therapy is knowing what to listen for when your client is speaking to you. This may sound simple, but I'll explain what it fully entails and how it makes such an impactful difference. To begin to get the picture, we might have to think like astrophysicists. The field of astrophysics is wildly fascinating. The way the celestial bodies interact, the pervasive laws of the universe, and the perpetual unraveling of what there is to know about the planets, stars, and galaxies we gaze at. All of it is deeply intriguing and even can feel enlightening. As much as we've come to know about all those things out in space and how they work, it's probably a bit confusing to ponder how we learned so much about objects so far away. How do we know that the Andromeda galaxy, the closest large galaxy to our own, is 2.5 million light years away? How do we know that the North Star, Polaris, is 70 million years old? How do we know the planet Jupiter is made mostly of hydrogen and helium? These objects are extremely distant from us and have a tendency not to give direct answers to our questions about them. So how could we possibly come to know any of this? The answer is, we got really, really good at reading the information those objects send to us. Jupiter is very indifferent to us asking such specific questions about itself. So at such a vast distance away, the only information we have that is sent directly from it is light. It might seem uninteresting or meaningless, but light can tell us a significant amount if we look at it the right way, and if we know what to look for. One of the several discoveries Sir Isaac Newton made was that light could be split into a spectrum of its many separate wavelengths that comprise it, using a prism. From that discovery, the method known as spectroscopy was developed, which is how scientists learn the composition of faraway objects. Every element in existence, such as carbon or hydrogen, absorbs light at a very specific wavelength. So when we use spectroscopy to examine the light coming from a faraway object like Jupiter, we can see dark lines in the light spectrum at the wavelength that corresponds with the elements present in that object. This means that if we can see an object, which is only possible if it's reflecting or radiating light, then we automatically know that there is valuable information about that object that is accessible to us. Simply by being visible, the object has no choice but to give us very usable information. You might be starting to see how all this astrophysics stuff is relevant to us. But let me make it as clear as possible. The clients that sit before us in session will speak to us saying a very large variety of things. Some of them will talk quite a bit about the problems they're dealing with. Some of them won't really answer the questions we ask, and instead will tell us what they hate about their marriage or their job. Some of them will say they're not hopeful at all for anything good to come to them. But no matter what they say and how they respond, there is always something useful to take away from their words. We simply have to know how to listen for that useful information. Here's how all this can help you ask meaningful, impactful questions. Your job is to use your therapeutic spectroscopy to notice the valuable things the client is telling you. Not only that, but you must also notice the things they tell you that aren't directly conducive to the questions we ask, but they have the potential to lead the conversation to something useful. If a client responds to the best hopes question by saying something far-fetched or nonsensical, like, "My family is frustrating and I just wish they disappeared," or "It'd be great if I won the lottery and got $1 million," Those are not extremely useful answers, but they certainly have the potential to lead to something. We can ask a few questions about what difference those far-fetched things would make to the client, and they're likely to give us something valuable regarding what they want or the change they'd like to see. But we have to recognize the potential in what they said. If the client says, "My life isn't as satisfying as it used to be," there isn't much that is useful in that answer. But we now know that there is a treasure trove of goodness in this person's past that we can ask about. The next several questions likely need to be about the satisfaction this client experienced before in the past, how they noticed it was there, what difference it made, how others noticed and responded to its presence. These are specific examples, but the general rule is always true. The client cannot help but to give you something. You just have to know what a usable answer looks like, as well as what a precursor to something usable looks like. Jupiter has never once answered a scientist's question about it. But as long as it is visible to us, it will inherently offer very valuable information about itself.